All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
I'm not going to lie, I've heard that music hundreds of times and I still get distracted by it. It gets me so psyched up because I know it's time for another Ship It Nation show. What's going on, everybody? My name's Bill. Put $1 in front of it. You'll find me on Twitter and Discord. Welcome to week 3 of the Ship It Nation college football DFS breakdown. Another great slate ahead of us. We've had some solid winners at the nation, both in college football and NFL the past couple of weeks. And that's kind of what leads me into my first little spiel here. We still have our football package up through the end of the season, $349 for our football package. It does include SaberSim. It includes all the resources, the stone, projections, our slate plan. And it's the best deal you're going to find in the industry because not only does it include NFL, that's why we call it the football package, not the NFL package. It also includes college football. Personally, I suggest going for one of our all access plans because we still have some good fights on the MMA cards. We still have PGA going, even though it's not the real PGA season. I don't care. We still got a stone. We still got projections. We're breaking down week-long showdown, and MLB's gearing up for playoffs. Next thing you know, we're going to be into NBA and NHL season, which, by the way, have stones for them as well. So everything you need right here. Like I said, we still have this deal up on our website for the football-only package, again, NFL and college. And now's the best time to join the nation. I mean, look at these winners. This is just from the last week alone. We're constantly getting up to the top of the leaderboards and flying that Ship It Nation flag. Some big tens of thousands of dollars a win. Hamhock on our college football team already has 2 tickets to the College Football World Championship. So if you get a ticket to one of those, you're sure to see his name once you get there. So like I said, just a great time to join the nation. We love our community. We'd love to have you join it. And like I said, it does include SaberSim. So we have, the best optimizer out there. We're partnering with SaberSim, and they've done a lot of great things for us, including, getting involved in some things with us. We got the Ship It games still going on. Now, the season has started. There's already been 7 golden Ship Its handed out, but you can jump in at any time. That, like I said, get that football only package as long as you're monthly or better. And you can get in on this golden Ship It. I've talked about it a lot. I do want to highlight this $79,000, almost $80,000 number because this week, Ship It game number 2, Share a Ship, is in the 555 for the milli. So all the stars align. Get that line up to the top of the leaderboard, and this is going to increase by $500,000 for this prize pool. So that is, if that doesn't entice you to get in on these Ship It games, it's been super fun so far. You can see we don't have it updated. There are 7 given away, but we don't have it updated quite yet. We just handed out a couple of more Thursday this week, but this website will be updated soon. And just want to mention again, if that lineup does get to the top of the Millie Maker and it is rocking one of these logos, guess what? We're in on the winner circle with SaberSim. So that Rolex watch is in play. But again, any of these big wins in the top 5 of your contest, if you're flying the right flag and you're a Ship It Nation SaberSim member, you qualify. But let's get to what we're here for. We are here for college football week 3. We've already had a lot of fun. We're getting a lot more data. Still some FCS teams that are going to put us in limbo with some of these games. But we know a lot more from what we've seen these first few weeks and starting to get a better handle on everything. So we have Oklahoma at Temple. Oklahoma, a 21.5 point favorite on the road, headed up to Philadelphia. They just beat Michigan and they have Auburn next week. So is this a letdown spot? I mean, it's on paper, this is what a letdown spot would be. But John Mateer, 9,400, appears to be a DFS stud once again. The ceiling is typically there at any price. We were playing him last year at Wazoo for 10K plus. The one thing here is with such a big matchup next week, there's a chance they save his legs. Now, this isn't going on anything other than our discussions behind the scenes and, a gut feel. But he's not going to need to do much to beat Temple. There's a chance, but 9,400 is a steep price to pay, and Arch is only $100 more, and we saw what he did last week. So Mateer's still on the radar, but just beware that, if they don't need him as much, we could see his ceiling capped a little bit. Torrey Blaylock near min price, a true freshman. Torrey Blaylock, yeah. He's probably the most eye-catching in this room, but Jaden Ott's kind of just been a letdown. He really hasn't been the same since he got hurt at Cal. And then Joe Barnes is there. Like, I don't know, this running back room's a little bit too up in the air, but that price is nice on Blaylock. If you did want to take a shot, they could, just run the ball this game and mix all of these guys in. At 3,100, you don't need much. And this wide receiver room is pretty cut and dry. DM Burks is in a prime spot as wide receiver 1, but you do get the discount with Lewis, Sategna, Kanik. They should be on the field early and often, at least until Oklahoma gets up if they do. So it's kind of a, if you do want to stack it, there are ways to do it. I don't mind it. They're in a good spot, a 36.5 point implied team total. Oklahoma, I'm not going to talk you off of them if you love them. If you want to avoid this game altogether, I wouldn't talk you off that either. On the Temple side, Giovanni McCoy is still mixing in some. Otherwise, Evan Simon would kind of be a little sneaky at 4,700. He's put up some big numbers, and he can run a little bit. Now, this is a little bit of a different animal than what they've seen. They played UMass, and then I think they played an FCS team. So it's not quite the matchup that they're used to seeing. Ducker's RB1, but not really by much. Any one of these running backs, you're hoping probably for a big play. I don't know that they're going to get a consistent dose of running with success on this Oklahoma defense. And then in this wide receiver room, nobody really stands out. Like JoJo Bermudez is kind of number 1. Colin Chase is kind of number 1. Kajaya Holloway is a former quarterback who can throw the ball, like if they do a trick play. Ryder Kush is just a fun name, but I'm not really looking at anything on this Temple side, mostly the Oklahoma side if I'm going here. Kind of the same in this Alabama game, only the 20.5 point favorite is the home team. Wisconsin, Billy Edwards is still unlikely to play. I don't know if that makes a difference. It's going to be tough to play anybody from this running back room. They're in that middle range. Dylan Jones, I mean, he's fine. And then Vinny Anthony is a top wide receiver, and he's cheap. His target share, gives you that upside. Maybe Lance Mason is kind of the tight end nookie blankie. Tresh Kakahuna, again, big play upside. He can run the ball too. So, I mean, these wide receivers are cheap enough where you could do a one-off, or if you want to stack Alabama and run it back, I'd probably do it with one of these wide receivers. Kevin Riley and Richard Young for Alabama have kind of squeezed out Daniel Hill in this rotation. Dre Washington has even out-carried Hill. A.K. Deere is a guy who played in a blowout, but it's mostly going to be Kevin Riley, Richard Young, and then a dose of Dre Washington and Daniel Hill. The one thing that we need to keep an eye on, though, is that Alabama is getting close to having Jam Miller back, and it almost seems like there's a chance they could get him back this week, but I don't know if they'll run him out just because they have a bye next week for an extra week of rest, and then they have Georgia. So it feels like maybe this is a good spot to just keep Jam Miller on the sidelines. But, whenever he does come back, we can expect a heavy workload. Keep an eye out for news. This is an early game, so your full lineup should be available to swap. And this is what's great about SHIPIT Nation too. We have sweaty tryhards on our college football team, and the community gets sweaty with us on Saturday. That's a weird thing to say. But Alabama, they're going to be in there. We're scouring Twitter, scouring depth charts, looking for reports, listening to pregame shows. It's, that's where the magic happens, is those late news bombs that come in. Like last week, it was Trey Wisner. This week, it could be that Jam Miller's suiting up and going to start the game. Those types of things is where you really want to be in a Discord like we have at SHIPIT Nation. And then Ryan Williams is on pace to also be back, so that could eat into Jeremy Bernard's ceiling a little bit. But again, with a bye week coming up and Georgia the following week, Jeremy Bernard, it didn't take much for him to get there last week, but he's in a good spot. Isaiah Horton's been banged up. He hasn't been a ton involved. Cuevas is a tight end, but Lazier Brooks is a wild card. He played some against FSU, but then he started with no Williams last week and he got involved early. So he has some slate breaking upside, especially at min price. He's a freshman that they're really, really high on. And if Bama continues to give him a shot, this is a plus EV matchup for him. So I don't mind him, but again, I like the Alabama stack here. And if you're going to run it back, which is not necessary, I don't think, but if you do, it's probably one of these top 3 pass catchers. Clemson at Georgia Tech. We got a close competitive game here that could get a little sneaky if the offenses really take off, but that's something that we haven't really seen from Clemson. They lost to LSU. They struggled with Troy at home. Cade Klubnik has kind of gone from Heisman hopeful to borderline broke. Like, I don't even know what to think of him. We have seen his upside in the past. It's just a tough price to pay. He does kind of look like Josh Allen's younger brother after what we saw on Sunday Night Football last week. Maybe that plays a factor. But 8,700 stuff. But of course, this is a week. We've actually been having a conversation in our Discord that he may be the Jordan Spieth of college football. You don't play him when everybody's on him, but if nobody's playing, that's when you jump on. I don't know that that's going to be the spot here, but like I said, the upside is there. We have seen it. It's just a matter of if he can find it. Adam Randall has taken control of his backfield, gotten a lion's share of the work. He hasn't been super effective, but he hasn't been bad. But Easy and true freshman Gideon Davidson are, they're right there. They have seen the field a little bit. They're super high on Davidson. At this point, like with the way Clemson season has gone, I wouldn't be surprised to see him mix it up a little bit. But as it sits right now, Adam Randall's in a great spot, even at 6,200. And then this wide receiver room, Antonio Williams, still a question mark. We are in conference play with this game, though, so we have an injury report. He's listed as questionable. This is an early game, so we are going to figure out that news if he's going to be playing or not. So that could play a big factor. Again, late news that's going to kind of guide us on how to play this room. But Tyler Brown would stand to benefit the most if he's out again. But Brian Wesco and TJ Moore would, set up to have more fun, usage funneled their way as well. They're all three great options. Tyler Brown being 3,800 if Antonio Williams sits. I like that price a lot. But any three of those guys are viable. And then in this tight end room, they haven't really had a Jake Breeding stool. Three of these guys kind of mix in. So it's really those top receivers. And then on the Georgia Tech side, Haynes King is going to be back. Philo had a really good game with Haynes King out, but they played Gardner Webb. I probably could have had a good game against them, but we know Haynes King has the rushing upside. And if he doesn't get sniped by Jamal Haynes, or, that kind of transitions to Jamal Haynes, if Jamal Haynes doesn't get sniped by Haynes King, both of these guys are in a good spot. He's like, Jamal Haynes is a workhorse when it comes to this running back room. His biggest risk is his quarterback. Like, they're RB1 and RB2 on this team. So they're both priced in that kind of middle range where, they're gonna catch my eye, especially if I'm stacking this game. Malachi Hosley will eat in a little bit. This wide receiver room is a little bit tougher to gauge. Eric Rivers and Bailey Stockton have the most targets from Haynes King, which was in the first game. They each had 4, but overall they only have 8 and 6 targets, respectively. Malik Rutherford only played 2 snaps in week 1. He was back against Gardner Webb, but it was with a different quarterback. We know he played with King last year, so the history is there that, these guys are, again, in a good pricing spot. This entire game, other than Klubnik, is priced pretty well to where you can fit in a really good stack. So that's something I'll be looking at come closer to Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up on my game stack list. These wide receivers might be a wait and see for me, but we'll see if we can get any news going into the game that, kind of changes my mind. All right, Central Michigan at Michigan. We have a 7.5 point team total and a 27.5 point underdog. There is a 3 quarterback rotation. They're splitting time. I don't care about anything on Central Michigan. Anything that comes from them is probably going to be fluky. I know New Mexico scored 17 points on Michigan, but I don't think Central Michigan's as good as New Mexico. And that was the first game of the season. So I'm not really looking at anything on the Central Michigan side. Is Michigan side is a little bit more interesting because might be a buy low spot on Bryce Underwood. He hasn't had really a good DFS day. He was a little underwhelming in that New Mexico game, but it was his first game ever. He had a bad day against Oklahoma, especially for DFS. But like I said, this might be a buy low spot before they get into Big Ten play. Justice Haynes is an absolute stud. I don't need to say much about him. He's been a stud through 2 games with Michigan this season, and I like him in all formats. Jordan Marshall will mix in, but honestly, it could be either one of these guys. I think I'd probably rather try to find $1,300 to get to Haynes, but if I landed on Marshall as my last guy in, I wouldn't be super upset about it. Now, this wide receiver room, Marlon Klein, the tight end, missed last week, but he is tracking toward maybe playing. I don't know. It might be another situation where they just save him because of this cake matchup. But he's good, man. He's on the freaks list. His teammate, Zach Marshall, the tight end that would benefit if Klein was out, had a quote that said something like, he's like a horse in human form with how big he is and the way he can move. So it's pretty high praise. 3,700. He had 9 targets in the game he played. So I'd be looking at him at 3,700. If he doesn't go, Zach Marshall might catch my eye, but Donovan McCulley at 4,400 is in a prime spot too. He's leading the team in targets. He just needs to catch more of those targets for DFS sake. And then Samaj Morgan is still there. He's still involved. It just hasn't really turned into much this year. But I do like this Michigan side a good deal in this matchup. Oregon at Northwestern, another blowout on paper in the most boring atmosphere in all of college football. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I feel like kids used to do their homework at Northwestern home games. So I think it has gotten a little bit better. Obviously, we saw Oregon blow out Oklahoma State last week. And they have Oregon State next week. I don't think they're not really looking ahead to anybody being how good of a team they are for the most part. Dante Moore did enough in less than 3 quarters last week. Northwestern is better than Oklahoma State, but he shouldn't have an issue here either. Like I said, there's just no atmosphere, and the Wildcats don't play particularly fast, so that could slow down this Oregon offense a little bit. I still think they'll win handily, but maybe not by, that 26, 27, 28 points. Noah Whittington appears to be RB1. Mekhi Hughes still can't get his way into this rotation on a consistent basis, hardly at all, honestly. So Whittington still in that middle price range that I'm surprised they didn't price him up after last week. They could have priced him up after the first play of the game. Another thing with pricing, DeCorian Moore got priced down. I don't know why. But really, it honestly, all 4 of these pass catchers are in play. DeCorian Moore's underpriced, Malik Benson's underpriced, Gary Bryant's underpriced. Kenyon Sadiq might be the only one priced right, and that's only because he is in a 4 pass catcher sort of timeshare. All of these guys should probably be 5,500 to 6,500, but clearly they're not. On the Northwestern side, Preston Stone sucks. Cam Porter's out. This RB room's going to be a mess. Griffin Wild is probably in play here. He does have the target share. So the one thing Preston Stone can do is find him on the field. And Oregon allowed 12 catches for 107 yards to Taco Dowler, who plays for Montana State. So if he can do that, Northwestern should be able to do that with an experienced quarterback and a target funnel. So you could, again, stack Oregon or run it back with Wild. This 10.5 point team total doesn't do anything for me, but at 4,500, Wild could get there on 8 catches, Georgia, Tennessee, we're back to another competitive game. Georgia kind of struggled with Austin Peay. I don't know if they were just going through the motions next week, but they have a bye and then Alabama. So, I don't think Tennessee's a team they'll overlook, but I know they kind of have Alabama probably in the back of their minds. Gunnar Stockton's price is just stupid. I know it's a tough road matchup, but 6,000 for a guy that can run the ball when he needs to. This is his first true test of the season, so we'll see. Nate Frazier is still RB1, but he does have a fumble already this year, which has been an issue for him in the past. He honestly probably could have been RB1, or at least flirted with the RB1 status last year, but he just couldn't hang on to the ball. So that leaves the door open for like Chauncey Bowens and Dwight Phillips, especially if Frazier can't rein in that ball security. And then Cash Jones is involved in the pass game quite a bit. The peculiar thing with Georgia is that Josh McCray and Roderick Robinson have kind of been non-existent. Again, they've had 2 very easy matchups. So this will probably be the game where we'll see what the true rotation is starting to look like. But right now we still have Frazier as RB1. I don't know if you can play him at 6,300. This wide receiver room, Zachariah Branch is a dog. Colby Young's caught all 9 of his targets. So they're both fine. If you think this game's going to hit the over, I'd probably do it with Stockton and a pass catcher on the Georgia side. Noah Thomas is cheap. He shouldn't be 3,700, but here we are. And then Dylan Bell, I just want to mention his stat line because so far this season he has 3 catches for -2 yards. But yeah, these top 3 receivers, especially Thomas with that pricing, not a bad stack with Stockton. And then on Tennessee side, Joey Aguilar has looked good. but what will he do against the best defense he's seen? He did play Clemson last year and had an okay game when he was still with App State. I mean, and by that, I mean, he didn't throw any picks. I think he one touchdown. Either way, he didn't throw any picks. Nothing that blew your mind. But he's on a better team now. So, and they're at home. So it's something that'll be interesting. At 5,300, it's really enticing just because Tennessee's a good football team. The running back room, Star Thomas and Deshaun Bishop are a split in this backfield. Thomas has more carries, but Bishop's stats have been he's just been a more effective runner. I mean, it has been boosted a little bit by a 50 and a 47-yard run, but it's kind of a split between these two. Bishop's also involved in the pass game a little bit more, and then Peyton Lewis is kind of the third wheel when it comes to this backfield. So Star Thomas, you do get a little bit of a discount, but just kind of feel like Bishop's the guy. And then this wide receiver room, Brazel, Staley, and Matthews lead the pass catchers. Amari Jefferson's a name I've heard thrown around, especially on like message boards and stuff. That everything said he was having a stellar camp, and he has only played 2 snaps this year. I don't think that George is a spot to get him more run, but just something to keep in the back of your mind. But Brazel and Staley at 4,500. There's several different ways to stack this game if you want to. My biggest concern with Georgia and Tennessee is that it just seems like it could turn into a dogfight really easily. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it popped. Oregon State at Texas Tech, despite the spread, I think this is a stackable game. Texas Tech plays fast. Oregon State ran 84 plays last week. So even if it turns into a blowout, there could be just a lot of plays running this game. Malik Murphy put up big numbers in a loss to Fresno last week. And he's only $5,000. So if you think he needs to throw a lot here, the upside's definitely there at that price. Anthony Hankerson is definitely a workhorse, 25 carries last week and 8 targets through 2 games. And Texas Tech hasn't given up much against the run, but think about who they played, Kent State and was it Arkansas Pine Bluff. So I think Hankerson is in a decent spot. 7,200 might just be a little bit tough. It just depends on the build of your lineups. But then in this wide receiver room, most of the usage gets funneled to Trent Walker and Taz Reddix. They accounted for 24 targets and 257 yards last week. The thing is, neither of them have a touchdown so far this year, but I got to feel like that isn't going to sustain itself. They got to find the end zone at some point. There's a decent drop off after that, but David Wells and Bryce Caulfield will be on the field enough for a little bit of upside in the 3Ks. But why not just go up to Taz Reddick, who we know is going to get the attention. So, Murphy, Hankerson, Walker, Reddix all on the radar. And then on the Texas Tech side, Baron Morton, too cheap. Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams is pretty interesting. Each has started a game. Williams has been the more effective runner, definitely, but Dickey had 2 touchdowns last week. He only had 10 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. So they're splitting time. And Adam Hill actually has the most carries out of this group. And he certainly could see the field in this game, but they've also had 2 blowouts. So there still are question marks in this backfield as far as how the rotation is going to go. And same with the wide receiver room. I mean, Reggie Virgil has more targets, but Caleb Douglas still seems like the number 1 in this wide receiver room. Again, in the 2 matchups they've had, it's hard to get any solidified rotation. And this very well may not give us any answers if the game turns into a blowout too, but it's Virgil, Eakin, and Douglas. And Carter, Carter's a drop off in price, so he's definitely there for the taking as well. But there are several ways to stack this with both quarterbacks, running backs from both rooms, at least 2 wide receivers, if not 3 or 4 viable from Texas Tech, and then 2 for Oregon State. So if Oregon State can keep pace even a little bit, this game could turn into a really, really good one for DFS. Pittsburgh at West Virginia, the backyard brawl. Running out of words. Backyard brawl. Eli Holstein shaping up to be one of the best plays on the slate. This is a great matchup for him, and he's only 7,400, which is definitely underpriced. We're used to seeing him in the 9Ks last year. Desmond Reed is in a great spot as well. He's just priced closer to what he should be, but we do know he has that 40-point upside. Raphael Williams and Kenny Johnson are back. They've taken a majority of the transfer share, and they're priced fairly to underpriced. So the biggest risk is that one is going to eat into the other, and if you have the wrong one, you're going to be tilting really quick. And then Katoris Hicks is a transfer in from Louisville. He's only 3,500, and he's the next guy up. He's the wide receiver 3 in this room. And he may be tough to find, but I think Eli Holstein can find Katoris better than Louisville can. So that's something to keep on your radar too. If you need a cheap wide receiver and you land on him, I wouldn't hate it. A couple things to watch. Jake Overman could be back after missing time as a tight end. And Sincere Lee is a name we know from last year. He hasn't played yet this year, but if we find out he's active, he could really throw a wrench into the usage of this wide receiver room. He could get 4 or 5 targets in this game if he's healthy and plays. But it's really those top 3 guys, Reed and Holstein, top 3 wide receivers with Reed and Holstein that are very playable in this game. On the West Virginia side, it's a complete mess. There were so many oars on the depth chart. I honestly thought Rich Rod was trying to sell me a kayak. It's Nico Marchiol has started both games, but he was terrible at Ohio. Texas A&M transfer. Jalen Henderson came in for a bit, but he wasn't great either. So they sent Nico back in. But there's 5 oars, like 5 co-starters on the depth chart this week. And you just spin the wheel. If it's Henderson, I'm in at least some. If it's Nico, I don't know that I want anything to do with it based on recent performance, but if we figure out that who the starting quarterback is before game time, that's when you pull the trigger on this West Virginia quarterback room. The same thing with the running back room. Now that Jaheim White is out, there's 3 or starters in the running back room: Clay Ash, Sincere Bowers, and Diori Hubbard. Clay Ash has had the biggest workload. Bowers is the next guy up after that. Diori Hubbard actually hasn't logged a snap this year, but he's 3rd on the depth chart in this or situation. And Ty Edwards probably should mix in as well. He's not listed on the depth chart, but those who follow the team say he should be involved. So again, unless we get something solidified, it's going to be tough. Even at these cheap prices, it could end up with a 0 in your lineup very quickly. But if you're right, it could lead to a big score. In this wide receiver room, a lot of oars, but we finally have 2 players that don't have oars. It's Cam Vaughn and Preston Fox. Cam Vaughn has been the best receiver in the room by far in almost every category as a pass catcher, and 4,600 is far too cheap. So that's the one thing I'm specifically looking at is these top 2 wide receivers for West Virginia. Cam Vaughn being far and away the first one. And Preston Fox is in for Jaden Bray. He also doesn't have an or next to his name. And he has a history with the team. And at min price, I don't mind taking a shot on him. It really helps the rest of your lineup. It's in a good game environment, and West Virginia's at home. Again, biggest risk is inconsistent quarterback play. And the rest of these guys are also or starters. So Fox and Vaughn are the top 2 if you want runbacks for Pittsburgh, or if you want to get real risky and stack the quarterback with the receiver and hope he gets right. The upside is there if you get it right. USC at Purdue, another big spread. Blowouts over Georgia Southern and Missouri State so far for USC, and they have looked really good. If they can continue to score quickly like they have been, I don't know if Purdue can keep up. Jaden Maeva has been stupendous this season. Now he's playing his old coach. Barry Odom was a coach at UNLV when Maeva was there. So a little bit of a revenge there. Or you could look at it as Odom knows his tendencies and maybe his ceiling is going to be capped from a DFS perspective this game because they're going to keep him in check. Wayman Jordan has taken over this running back room as far as like who the RB1 is. But these other guys are going to mix in. Eli Sanders should see the field. Brian Jackson could be back. I saw him in full pads in a video from practice earlier this week. So that he's tracking to play. We will obviously know that news before this game locks because of the Big Ten injury report. So we'll see that. And then King Miller's a redshirt freshman who got opportunity last week and he used it. He's got 2 touchdowns already this season and he's averaging 20 yards a carry. So he's poised to find his way onto the field. And if he's not, he's going to force his way out there, it seems like. But I wouldn't be surprised to see all 4 of these running backs log carries. If you get the right one, you're in a great spot. Mekhi Lemon, underpriced. I don't know why they priced him down this week. He's been stellar even in blowout games. What did it take him 15 seconds last week to get to 3x his price? It was insane watching that, following that box score and following my DraftKings lineup, seeing that fire next to Mekhi Lemon's name instantly. It was great though. And then Jacoby Lane is the clear number 2. But after that, these guys are still going to be involved, but it's more of a coin flip which one of these cheap guys is going to get the catch. And then Purdue Crush Ball State in week 1 looked really good, and then they struggled with Southern Illinois. It was a little bit weird. Ryan Brown, though, at 5,100, definitely presents some upside with his rushing ability. Georgia Southern did have some success through the air, too. And it's weird to say this with Purdue, but Purdue is USC's biggest test of the year. But that's just because of who they played so far. But I don't mind Ryan Brown at 5,100. I do think Purdue has the opportunity to keep this game close. Just because they're at home, USC has to travel 2 time zones. And, I mean, it's a Big Ten school. I know it's not at the caliber of USC, but we've also seen USC with some letdown games the past few years. And I do think USC is going to score. So Purdue's best chance to stay in this game is to keep up. And if they do that, you're going to want Ryan Brown in your lineup. You probably want Devin Maccabee at 5,400 in your lineup. He's averaging 23 carries a game. He had 32 carries against an FCS school last week. He's also involved in the passing game. So 5,400 for you're playing him for his workload is really what you're playing him for. And then Michael Jackson, revenge game. He was at USC last year and he came to Purdue. So at 3,900, he's a top target guy on the team. Anytime you get a top target guy, especially in a revenge game for sub 4K, you're going to want to at least take a look at him. Armand Branch was a DFS darling in week 1. He's got that big playability. EJ Horton's going to be on the field. But this is a sneaky game stack. Like, if you see a route for Purdue to keep up, this game could hit over 70 points total, and it would not surprise me. So with Purdue being the home team again, definitely there's a bunch of different ways you can stack this game. You can do a Purdue stack with run backs of Lemon or Jordan, or even a Maeva Lemon Brown Jackson stack. It would not shock me to get there. I don't think you need to overstack it or anything like that, like SMU and Baylor last week, but I do think the opportunity is there in what appears to be a blowout on paper. Iowa State at Arkansas State. This could be a trap game for Iowa State. They're obviously the better team, but they had Ireland in week 0. They came back and beat Kansas State. They just had an emotional victory against Iowa in the Cyhawk game. Next week is a bye. Again, you add it all up, and if you see Arkansas State beats Iowa State, okay, is a trap game. But Rocco Becht, too cheap for this spot. He did have a bad game against Iowa, at least for DFS purposes, but it's such a sloggy game. I kind of disregard that when it comes to DFS. Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, 1A, 1B. You get the discount with Sama, you get the workload with Hansen, but it's not that much of a gap that I think warrants $2,100. But you could really go either or depending on how your lineup build goes here. 38 points is a lot for an implied team total. But if you want to stack Rocco Becht, you're going to do it probably with one of these tight ends, maybe 2 tight ends. Can we get 2 tight ends? Gabe Burkle and Ben Bramer are leading the pass catchers this year. And it's honestly, watching the games, it's not really that close. I mean, Brett Eskelson has had some flashes and he's scored, but it's really Burkle and Bramer, and they're cheap. They're underpriced for their workload and target share. I do still think Sowell and Townsend are going to get there if they can figure it out, but until you see it, I don't think you can pay $5,100 for Chase Sowell when Burkle and Bramer are significantly cheaper. On the Arkansas State side, if you do want to run back, it's probably going to be with Jalen Rayner. He's pretty talented and a dual threat, at least talented in terms of the Sun Belt and Arkansas State is concerned. And he does have the advantage of being at home, so 5,500 does show some upside here. Kenyon Clay's just too expensive. Iowa State's only giving up 3.7 yards per carry. Rucker and Cobb are the 2 wide receivers that get the usage. There's a drop-off after that. I think there's just better guys in their price range. Just look across the game. Look across here. You'd probably only be playing these guys if you think Arkansas State, again, can keep up. I don't think it's as good of a spot as Purdue potentially keeping up with USC, but I mean, the possibility is definitely there. Where I don't think the possibility is there is UTEP at Texas. I don't know what to say. 5-point team total. It's really just Kenny Odom, and you're playing Kenny Odom because of his target share. He's averaging 11 targets per game. So if he catches 8 of those, you're already at 8 points. You're almost a 2x just on receptions alone. So if you do want to get greasy and play somebody from UTEP, it's definitely Kenny Odom. On the Texas side, we saw what Arch can do. I was hoping they'd make him 10K, but they didn't. CJ Baxter is going to be the lead back again. Wisner is going to be out. So, I mean, they really priced him up to where he should be, but they may run the ball a lot more. And one thing too is like Gibson and Clark are behind him, but there's some rumors rumbling that this Wisner thing might be a little bit more long-term. So they're trying to figure out who that second running back is going to be. So maybe we do get a little bit more of a dose of Gibson and Clark just as they kind of test the waters and see how that goes. But Baxter's clearly the top option here. In the wide receiver room, Parker Livingstone was a superstar last week, and they didn't price him up even $1. And he's Arch's roommate, so we know the relationship is there. Like $3,500 though is just asinine. So if there's a lock of the slate, it's him. And because I said that, he will score 0 points now or something below 5. Just remember that. Ryan Wingo though, 7,200. He's expensive, but he's still getting the target share. He's just got to catch the ball. I mean, he had one egregious drop last week. I think it's only one in the stat book so far, but the one I saw live and it was pretty bad. But they probably want to get him a little bit more confident going into conference play. And then Jack Endries only had 2 targets last week, but they were both touchdowns. The one thing we're watching here, DeAndre Moore is listed just because he's played. But I do want to mention he's like doubtful to out for this game. So that could lead to some more time for maybe the true freshman Khalil Lockett and Jamie Fafrench. Look it up. There's 2 F's that start his last name. So I'm going to say Fafrench, even if I get corrected. And then Jordan Washington's the backup tight end who's min price. But Emmett Mosley's probably not going to play either. He hasn't played yet this year, so we're not missing anything as far as data goes. But DeAndre Moore, it could just funnel more to Livingstone, Wingo, and Endries. But like I said, maybe one of those true freshmen steps up in a matchup that they should be able to find the field in. And our last game on the slate, South Florida at Miami. South Florida, the Giant Slayers. They rocked Boise at home, beat Florida in Gainesville, although Florida kind of beat themselves in Gainesville. Don't get me started. We could be here all day. But I don't need to talk much about South Florida because if you know anything about college football, you know Byron Brown. It's pretty self-explanatory. He can throw some, but he's definitely more dangerous with his legs. He's the RB1 and QB1 on this team. South Florida stays in this game. A big part of it's going to be due to Byron Brown. Norton has the most carries for the running backs, but it's still like half of what Byron Brown has. And Alvin Isaac's just been more explosive. He's had better production and he's more involved in the pass game. So, and he's cheaper. So if you're going to play one of these running backs, it's probably Isaac, but I don't know if I'd mess with it. And then it's Nimrod and Singleton in this wide receiver room. They're both cheap enough that if you want to stack Byron Brown, you can. Ruben and Neptune are going to be involved, but the playmakers are Nimrod and Singleton. But like I said, any of those 4 are viable. It's just those top 2 are a little bit more for me. And then Miami, they beat Notre Dame to start off the season, and then they crushed Bethune-Cookman. Carson Beck in a great spot, only $7K. I think Miami's play calling is better than Florida's. I think Carson Beck will go through his progressions better than DJ Lagway did. So $7K for a 37.5-point implied team total for an experienced quarterback. Give me that all day. I don't particularly like Carson Beck, but this spot's too tough to ignore. The running back room is going to be interesting. Jordan Lyle is going to be back, and he was actually the starter for that Notre Dame game. And then he didn't play last week. Mark Flesher and Marty Brown could carry this backfield by themselves, but with Lyle involved, we could see a 3-headed monster, but Lyle being the cheapest, I probably lean that way. But we've seen this running back room get to 3 to 4 in years past under Cristobal. So it's probably going to be one of them, maybe 2 of them that get there. It's just a matter of picking the right one. I think they're all viable, just depending on what your lineup looks like. In this wide receiver room, Malachi Toney looks like that dog. He's been a stud this season. Just an awesome true freshman. He might still be 17 years old. I don't know if he's turned 18 yet. I'll have to look that up. But he's just been awesome. CJ Daniels, you're getting a $2,300 discount. He flashed early with that big catch in the Notre Dame game. He's also really involved in this offense, and he's got 3 touchdowns already. And then Elijah Lofton is just a tight end who's going to be on the field. The one thing I'm keeping an eye on, though, is JoJo Trader. You'll see his name at the bottom there, Jashaisa. That's why we call him JoJo. Anyway, there's been some talk out of the Miami fan message board, podcast, whatever you want to say, Just that Mario Cristobal has this thing about giving out the number 1, and that just happens to be the number that JoJo Trader wears. And it means something. You have to earn that number. So like reading the tea leaves, it's like he earned that number 1 in camp. So he should find his way onto the field if that's the case. We just haven't quite seen it yet this year, but it'll be interesting to see if he can bust out. Maybe this is the game that he does it. And if it is, and you pick him right, he's your long shot dart, would not surprise me. And you'd probably be one of the only ones that plays him. But that's it for this slate. Like I said, there's a lot of blowouts on this slate, but some of these blowouts on paper, like USC Purdue or USF Miami, could be a little bit closer than the spread indicates. But it should be another fun week of college football. But I'm always going to go back to the big guys. Rule number 1, college football is fun. Don't take any of these days for granted. Enjoy the process. Enjoy building your lineups. Enjoy the sweats. And just be thankful that we have college football on our TVs to watch and that we get to play college football DFS. But with that said, we'll see you on DraftKings and hope to see you at the top of the lineups. Let's ship one for the big guy this week, everybody.